Bob Talk Radio. I'm your host, Jeff Canarsie. On Friday afternoon, October 26th, Vincent Zito, 77, was found dead inside of his home in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn. At the scene, a handgun was found near the body of Zito. At first, evidence appeared to be that it was a suicide. However, forensics would determine that Zito was shot twice in the back of the head, execution style. Vincent Zito, who was a known associate of the Lucchese crime family, had arrests which dated back to bookmaking and loan sharking in the past. Zito's body was unfortunately found by his grandson, Joe. After months of investigation into the murder, Anthony Pandrella, a Gambino known associate, would be arrested for the murder of Zito. Surveillance photo would show that Pandrella entered the yard of Zito in the early morning hours of October 26th. Pandrella, known as a Gambino Associate, had been friends with Zito for over 30 years. FBI and the NYPD were able to ascertain from evidence that Zito was in fact under surveillance by the FBI as they were looking into his loan sharking activities, and Zito was considered by the FBI to be fully under investigation. When Vincent Zito found out that he was under investigation by the federal government, he turned to lifelong friend Anthony Pandrella. The reason why he turned to Pandrella was to hide his cash in case the feds came with a search warrant. Pandrella wanted to help his friend out and took $750,000 to basically store in his house for safekeeping until the investigation either went away or concluded. The problems truly began when whatever the feds were looking for never came to fruition, and Zito began to ask Pandrella for his money back. Zito began calling Pandrella about the money, and Pandrella never answered his calls. Zito then went looking for Pandrella only to not be able to locate him. Turns out Pandrella stole the money and had no intention of ever giving it back. As this continued to go on, Zito began to lose patience with Pandrella and eventually was able to corner Pandrella, who decided to meet Zito for dinner at Batista in Brooklyn. At this dinner, it's been alleged that Zito demanded his money or there would be consequences. According to various reports, Zito gave him a certain timeline. Anthony Pandrella at some point made one payment, then began to duck Zito completely. Word began to travel that Zito was going to kill Pandrella over the theft, and Pandrella sent word that he would be coming with the money. As the video surveillance showed, Pandrella walks into the front gate and enters the house and ends up shooting Zito twice in the back of the head. DNA analysis combined with the surveillance footage proved that Pandrella was the one responsible for the murder, including DNA found at the scene that belonged to Pandrella and DNA found on the gun and fingerprints found on the gun, which led back to Pandrella. To make it more egregious, Pandrella went to the home after the murder to console the family and promised to find out what happened to his friend Vincent Zito. Eventually, Pandrella would be arrested and charged, ultimately sentenced to 40 years in prison. Pandrella's attorney argued for lenience in court based on Pandrella's poor health because he was wheelchair-bound and he was suffering from gangrene, but Judge Brody refused to hear it and hammered Pandrella. And at 63 years old, that's a life sentence. And so there you kind of have it. A 30-year friendship, a close bond. You know, I don't know why anybody would give anybody $750,000, to be honest with you. I could know somebody 40 years. I don't think I'd ever give them that kind of cash. And apparently Pandrella spent the money on houses and house businesses that all failed. And I believe, if I remember correctly, he ended up paying back close to $15,000, but decided it was easier to kill him than to be a man, step up and do the right thing. So there you have it.